David, hey there, partner. How you doing today?
I am doing well, thank you, Matt.
Oh,
So
I'm
what's
so
the
glad.
topic
Well, in our
today?
desire to continue to share knowledge and information and keep some relevant content out there for the ambitious business owners that we are already working with or will be working with, team's been focused really here, clients real focused on adding to their team and the job descriptions, which I think we talked about previously, and just the process to get to interview and having
Mhm.
a worthwhile and a helpful interview. One concept there is this concept of a working interview. And working interview concept is essentially it's always a two-way evaluation. The employer and the prospective employee or the candidate with especially think about those where it's a trades-based business. So they would have knowledge already to be able to apply, or a skilled-based business, maybe like project management, and whereby they would come in and you would give them a specific task to be able to observe that. Project management space might be like, we're planning this type of project. I'd like you to draft a project plan, and I'm going to role play with you as one of the project team members. Or maybe in the automotive space, they say that they're a middle level. There's usually tiers in skill, right? So they're a middle level
Mhm.
technician, and you need to be able to verify that before you and they were to move forward. And so for a day, they'll be partnered up with someone in the role that they would be filling, or someone maybe in a level above them, and they would actually be assigned to perform those tasks. Seen, experienced, heard of such a strategy before, David?
Yeah, I think it becomes very valuable. In some interviews, it may be appropriate to put them through some type of an assessment early on and just quickly evaluate do they have the skills that they claim that they have. If they've been in the field for a while, and the resume might indicate some of that, but there's some ways to quickly assess, do they really know what they're talking about. Describe a scenario or something, and they can talk through that. But then once you've established as a interviewer, as a hiring manager, that hey, this individual might be a really good fit. It's perfectly fine and many times beneficial to have a working interview. To your point, it might be a day, could be a part day or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the nature of the work and how long it takes. But to pair them with somebody else, and to your point, it's a two way interview. Number one, we get to see how they perform. Do they know what they're doing? According to what they claim they know, and what's that engagement level? A lot of times working side by side with somebody, um, some other things come out. It's good for the candidate to ask questions of a peer, of another employee. Hey, what's it like to work here? Or I've heard what a normal day or week looks like. What's it really like? And they get that engagement and conversation going, and they get to see what it's like to actually work for your company. And you get the feedback too from maybe an employee with some tenure as to how did that go. Do you think they would be a good fit, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing? But we've both been through that. Sometimes you might tee it up with that team member that you're going to assign them to. um, this is what we're looking for. Have them do this or do that to verify their skill sets and their knowledge.
And this is an opportunity for that employer to really put their best foot forward as well. And so that two-way street, and that's something I would always say in interviews is, I want to show some respect to that candidate. They bring some value to the table. And so this is an opportunity for them to really see, is this what they're looking for? And it's an opportunity to make sure that that's what we're offering as the employer. And on contrary, it's also to make sure that as you throw that additional element into the ingredients in your business, how does that individual adapt? We had talked in these types of conversations with clients about, the open-ended nature of questions and interviews, situational type things. But until in the environment where if it's an on your feet all day job and the interview's all in a chair, things are just not simulated the same. And it's much like
Right.
an automotive analogy, right? Like you wouldn't buy a car without test driving it. And so that's not to minimize the power of human capital. It's the most important resource we have for sure in any business. but it is a fair shake to say, let's get a two-way evaluation here. And so many times somebody gets brought on, and then it's this, 90-day, and you may know something in the first week, but there's this natural tendency, I would say you would agree, and tell me if you don't, that, people are quick to hire and slow to fire many times, and that doesn't often serve the business well. So this is another way to
Right.
really pressure test. What are you getting? Spend a day so you don't spend 90.
Exactly. And you can be clear up front. And as a business owner or hiring manager, it certainly makes sense to be intentional. Don't just wing it. If you're
Mm-mm.
going to have a working interview, specifically, what are you looking to draw out, to observe? Might be communications, it might be the teamwork, might be just, do they kind of stand back and watch, and they'll respond when told to do something, but is that what you are looking for in a new employee? Or are you looking for somebody that is kind of that self-starter, asking questions, curious, just jumping in and trying things? You can set up the scenarios to draw out what you're actually wanting to draw. Be intentional about what you're trying to observe in this working interview process. Don't just wing it and hope it plays out. Okay, be intentional to learn what you want to learn to make a good hiring decision.
That's absolutely right. I think back, just quick story, to previous chapter with franchising, and they have basically a discovery day. And the discovery day is an opportunity for the franchisor and the interested franchisee to get into the franchisor's environment, typically into, if this is a retail environment, into that retail location, one of their centers or businesses somewhere, and to
Mhm.
literally spend a day with that individual that's doing what you're basically looking to do. Now, that may be counterintuitive to many listening, to say, well, wouldn't a franchisor just want anyone that's willing to come in and make the investment? Well, the answer to a good franchisor is no,
Right.
because that's not good for the brand. It's not good for the tenure, for the retention. And so, as we talk about these types of things about building a team, I think, Dave, what you and I are really focused on is the things we try to help our clients work toward, and see it happen time and time again, whereby they're being sought out by employees and are not having to seek out, based on, and it takes time to get there, but based on doing these things right, doing these things well, doing them consistently. Those are attainable goals, to have an environment that's known to be a good employer and has people basically waitlisting to have the opportunity to work for you. And these are one of the ways to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all an investment in the future, and there's so many different studies out there about what the real cost of recruiting, interviewing, hiring, onboarding, and boy, it just makes more sense to do a better job interviewing, and that might include, for certain companies, working interviews, and it saves so much time and energy
Mm-hmm.
from making a poor hiring decision. Get as much
Yeah.
information as you can up front, and it's good for both parties, definitely.
And I
So,
know you mentioned earlier on, but just in closing thought, about using some tools maybe to do some objective assessments. Anything
yeah.
specifically you've seen fruitful or that you might recommend?
Well, what we use a lot, 100% of the folks we work with, we start with a disc and a motivators. The disc is a communication behavioral style. And there's no right or wrong, but it gives a certain indication of what their behavioral and communication style is. And different styles are, through some benchmarking, certain styles are just better at certain roles. And so we want to match up the style with the role to make sure it's a good fit. And then the motivators also gives some great insight as to what inspires people, what gives them energy across 7 different kind of values. And so some things energize people, some things de-energize people. So we're wanting to make sure we understand um, people's preferences and make sure it's a good fit for the role and the outcomes we're interested in getting for that role within our companies. So
That's a good.
good simple assessments to help make better decisions. Nothing's perfect, but might as well use the tools that are available to make the best decisions possible. And it pays off in the
Absolutely.
long
And I think in that toolkit, and for those listening here as a final thought, is kind of that progression from the golden rule, which is treating people how we want to be treated, to being able to progress to the platinum role, which is being able to treat them how they want to be treated. And that
That's
takes
right.
understanding how people are made up and being able to identify some things, no absolutes, but being able to identify some things that give you some insights of how to get a better result through the communication that you're having with a team member or with a prospect. Check
Yeah.
us out next time on our next podcast. Appreciate you taking the time to listen to
Yeah.
this one. This is Matt and David.
Good stuff, Matt. Thanks.